Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today my personal astrologer, my personal Jupiter. You've seen him on my channel so many times. It is the one and only Michael Barwick. And Michael and I have a lot to talk about. I mean, we always do whenever we get together, and I always learn so much from him. But I do want to let you guys know that he's also, in addition to talking about some important astrological things coming up later this year, big defining moments in 2024, well, he's also going to weave in an understanding of some astrological magic and gemstones. And that is because Michael Barwick, in addition to being back at Synchronicity Web TV, is also back at Synchronicity University as part of the November 2024 speaker series. You've got a little time left from the time that this is publishing to choose your tuition rate. As always, just $5 a class. And this speaker series has a magical, haunting, very Scorpio season theme. It's just so perfect. So Michael and I have so much to talk about. Michael, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure to spend time with you, Nadiya.
I adore you. You are the reason I go to downtown Toronto when I come visit my parents in South Central Ontario. You are a wonderful reason to take that train, to sit in that train for a long, long time and find my way to you. And of course, like I said, every time I hang out with you, anytime we speak, I come away a better astrologer, and I just love you for that so, so much. And so where do you want to start? What should we start with? I mean, I know I want to ask you about what's coming up because there's such big things coming up. And I know that there's fear, but there's also a sense of wanting to be part of a solution, wanting to be part of love and wisdom. I know I'm feeling that. And there are different ways we do that. And one of the ways we do that is through magical practice or aligning our energy. So why don't we start there? First and foremost, what can people do to align with a better energy to make their lives and the lives of maybe the planet that much better as well?
Well, I think fundamentally when we're looking at configurations that cause astrologers, some astrologers anyway, to pause, like, oh my goodness, this is happening. What could come out of this? What does this mean? I'm afraid. Be afraid. We have to remember that, as they say in Dune, fear is the mind killer, right? Fear isn't helpful as a place to stay. Certainly we can have some apprehension about certain configurations with good reason, but I think that there's always an opportunity to be able to take even the most difficult of combinations and do positive things with them. It's the old adage, if life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. That's certainly the way I work with my clients, and I'm sure you can remember me talking in similar ways with you, Nadiya, in that we can work particularly at an individual level with heavier energies and make great progress in the direction in which we're going. I mean, one of the concerns has been, of course, the Mars-Pluto opposition, which, because of the Mars retrograde cycle, will repeat 3 times. We're really, already in the feel of it, because it's Mars is already in Cancer and is loud, loud out there. Mars is loud. There's just no getting around that. A lot of roaring around and
Conflict.
Conflict.
Yeah, we're seeing conflict. I mean, and especially because it's Cancer and it has to do with like patriotism and countries and nationality and national pride and things like that. And so we're seeing these themes so strongly. And the fact that Pluto is like sort of in its last stand in Capricorn. And once we get into the new year, the sign of Pluto and Mars opposite each other will be different. But for now and for this year, it's like right on election day, isn't it? That the opposition perfects.
A couple of days before that the opposition perfects. with Mars, Pluto, but and certainly there's been concerns, and I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said in the media in terms of the kind of violence that people are expecting in some parts of the world, or violence that's already going on in the world. Not that astrology makes anything happen, and I think this is one of the points I like to make over and over again, that the planets and stars reflect programs already in progress. It's already happening. You don't have to look up here as the causal thing that's making this happen here. You have to see it as this is indicating something that's already active and alert down here. So when faced with configurations like Mars Pluto, we have to keep in mind that perhaps we need to dig for power that we forgot that we have, right? Power of individual agency to do. And I always say to folks who come to me around Pluto transits is that if Pluto is touching something, it means that that principle needs to be reformed in some way, transformed in some way. And certainly the difficult side of it, the ripping down and exposing the faults of it, or seeing the underbelly of it and so forth. This aspect of Pluto tends to make astrologers afraid. But on the other side of Pluto is very much the new life, the giving birth to new possibility, the renewal, the re-engagement as with something better, something more refined, something purer. So Mars Pluto on an individual level provides us with an opportunity to understand our Mars in a very deep way, understand our own anger, our own frustrations, and subject them to some kind of alchemical transformative process that purifies what do we really want, what is it that we really desire, which is so much of what is about Mars. Is that what do we really want? What really draws us? And perhaps move in a direction that may be surprising, but is better attuned to who we really are at core. The other Mars Pluto dimension is very much around grit and determination and carrying through. Another good Mars Pluto metaphor is that the garbage needs to be taken out, especially when you start smelling it. That's an indication something is wrong and it needs to be addressed. And so the removal of things, the removal of negative things in our lives, and the dedication and the persistence of approaching life in that way, that perhaps the problem is not so much in terms of adding things, which is how we tend to look at things. If I had more money, more time, a better phone, whatever it may be, that calls us and says we need to add more. Perhaps Mars Pluto is about our lives would be better if we subtracted more. We took things out. We simplified our life. We made things purer and more aligned with what our true desire for ourselves is. That is how I would approach understanding Mars Pluto.
And our truest desires, what do you think that could be? I mean, when I think about truest desires, I think about being safe and free, and my parents being well, and the people I love, and my truest desires just being peace. Actually, I would like my truest desires to be peace. And so what does that look like? Not peace. I mean, when you say our truest desires, is it that we each need to define that for ourselves?
Oh yeah, I think Mars is an individual thing, and if we're approaching it from an individual level, I mean, things are going to happen in the collective because the things are going to happen in the collective, and the vibration isn't always going to be the highest. I mean, that's the reality of life on planet Earth. Welcome. For those of us who are aware and are tuned into that there are higher ways of expressing even the most difficult of combinations, it's up to us to be able to take that inspiration and move forward. And with Mars, it's about Mars Pluto, it's about boiling it down to its essence of what it is we individually want, what our own ambition is, what our own desire is, what it is that we really want to achieve, where it is we want to go. I mean, Mars is very much, I always see Mars personally as the active agent of the sun. Like the sun is will, but Mars is the enforcer that makes it happen, right? It sets it in motion, that does the doing. No matter what the sun may want, Mars has its own rhythm and its own agenda. So Mars Pluto for us all is an opportunity to look at our Mars function, this drive to assert and to move forward and to transform it in a way that allows us to be able to interact with others, be true to our feelings of frustration and difficulty and anger, and yet be able to express them in a way that allows us to be able to negotiate and collaborate with others.
Yeah, the opposition is about negotiation, isn't it?
Yes, and awareness.
Mm.
Being aware of where our anger and our hatred and our difficulty with our fellow creatures has run away with us. That it's an opportunity to reflect on those biases, on those things that have stirred us into fits of fury or frustration or even depression can be Mars, right? Anger turned inward, right? So it's Mars Pluto, particularly Mars Pluto provides an opportunity to go into that depthy place, and if you're prepared to go meet Pluto halfway and go into the darkness and deal with whatever it is that's down there, you have the opportunity to come out the other side renewed, refreshed, and re-engaged and capable in the life that is to come.
So I'm going to ask you a question that might be beyond the scope of an astrologer. I mean, I don't think so, but because I know you and I know what healing presence you bring to my life, right? But do you think, I mean, there are going to be people who are going to choose to indulge the lower vibration, just like you said right now, right? And that idea of going and even admitting to yourself or to others the profound hurt that is in the way of that feeling of what you're calling refreshment, I would say peace, right? That feeling on the other side of sort of accepting where we have been powerless, but now deciding that we are going to be a force of positive power in our lives and the lives of others. That work can be hard for some people. And it's hard for a few reasons. One is like deeply psychological, right? Because if we go there and find acceptance of things that maybe are poisoning us, but there are very good reasons we would hate, very good reasons. Maybe
Sure.
Where it is that there's been immense pain, we're just not wanting to look at it. And there's that of feeling as if we are moving towards acceptance and forgiveness of a situation that should not be accepted, that should not be forgiven.
Not be forgiven, yeah.
Yeah, but then there's also this addictive quality to our anger, isn't there? There's something very addictive about it in a way that peace is not addictive. I mean, peace is by its very nature calm, and it doesn't give us that thrill of life, for lack of a better word, right? The adrenaline hit and rush that we get when we are angry, and the quality of how we start to associate that with really being alive, and also the addictive quality of being right, of saying, no,
Wow.
we are in the right, whether it's emotionally right, morally right, whatever it is, right? To say that, to put ourselves on a different pedestal than others, that has an addictive quality as well, as opposed to being conciliatory, wanting to find consensus. these are things that are work, and these are things that not everybody is ready for within themselves. And we certainly see that on the world stage. It can feel overwhelming in how much it feels like that isn't happening on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
Then what? With all this, what is it that we do? What is it that we can do? If we find ourselves in that place of the addictive quality of our own self-righteousness, what do we do about that?
Well, now you're pulling in the Jupiter-Saturn square, I think, is what you're what's coming into it when we start talking about being right and being invested in being right. And not only are we invested in being right, but we want to enforce our view of rightness on the rest of the world, because if we can't live in a particular way, then they can't either. If we can't be free, then they can't be free either, and so on. I think the piece around anger is to recognize that anger feels stronger than hurt, right? It feels stronger. Like it feels like you're in a stronger place, but really what's going on is you have to drill down into where the hurt has happened, where the cut has occurred, where you've been poked or stabbed, right? You need to get into that place of the wound and understand that place and accept that place and work on healing that place to be able to get past, past the anger and into a place of deeper harmony and deeper understanding of that on the deepest level, that all these things are reconciled. Remember, right? All these things that we see in the world are reconciled at the deepest fundamental level.
That's what we go for. You mean that's what we aim for?
I think that's what comes from. I mean, one of the things I talk about in the course is the magical worldview. Is like, how is magic possible? How does magic occur? What kind of universe do we live in which magic is possible? And of course, it's a deep question because magic is so misunderstood. Like astrology, it's an occult practice, and so therefore what people think it's about isn't what it's really about. But one of the things I talk about in terms of the magical universe is that at the deepest level, of the fundamental level of being, there is harmony. And everything that we see comes into existence and springs and is rooted in the divine itself. And that understanding, being able to see that, to do the work to get past the limitations of ego that blind us from seeing that interwovenness of everything, enables us to have more compassion, because we understand that the universe isn't just lovely or nifty or neat. It's also who we are on some deep fundamental level. Obviously, not everyone is going to have the grace, the opportunity to be able to have that experience of interior freedom. And yet it's something that we all need to work on. We all need to make the effort towards, and to invite the universe to play in us to experience that freedom.
Wow. That's powerful to consider. And I mean, I know we often say in spiritual circles, New Age circles, like, I am you, you are me, we are all love and things like that.
Right.
And we forget that this is actually rooted in a deep understanding of a worldview that many a spiritual force in the world, esoteric practitioner in the world has understood on this really deep level. Do you think that by doing our own work, like whatever that might be? I mean, I personally think that psychoanalysis is a form of alchemy, in my personal opinion, because you're
Yes.
through the mind, you're like raising energy that might be caught in your stomach, right? Like this really like the painful experiences of life or whatever that you feel in the pit of your stomach, and you're bringing them up to talk about them and understand them on a level of intellect, in the hopes that that energy changes as it rests back into the rest of your body and your spiritual body, your emotional body, and so on. And that could change a life profoundly so. So I happen to believe that psychoanalysis is an alchemical process, right? And what I mean by that is what we do is we have perhaps energy of whatever you can call it, stuck energy, anger energy, sadness energy. And maybe it's sitting in our sense of our physical body, right? Like we often feel it in terms of the pit of our stomach can hold fear, but it might be in our spiritual body, our emotional body. And what we do is we aim to raise that energy to the intellect so that we speak it, so that we understand it, in the hopes that as that energy circulates back into other bodies that we have, emotional, spiritual, physical, that it becomes something else. It becomes an energy of what I like to call greater love and greater wisdom, as you called, divine energy. And so there's that, but then there's also like actual magical practice that we do in terms of working with working with stones, working with herbs, working with, more traditional magical practices. Do you think that doing that work, first of all, I want to know if you see psychology or psychoanalysis the same way, but do you think that doing that work, whether on ourselves to transform ourselves or on that energetic, magical level, do you think it can contribute to world peace?
I think that the individual, it's what we have. We have our own ground. We have our own ground, and we need to focus on working our own ground. And of course, within the working of our own ground, we have a sphere of influence. We have people whose lives we touch, and in those interactions, we are presented with opportunities to do the right thing, to be a healing presence, to show up to goodness in the world, right? To show up to peace in the world, to show up to goodwill in the world. We have that opportunity, continual. And so it becomes a question of how can I best prepare myself, orient myself, align myself with that spirit of love that seeks to do good in the world, right? That becomes the fundamental question. And that's way more important than worrying about what's happening wherever, right? Like in terms of, because in point of fact, there's not a lot we can do personally about what is going on wherever, right? There's not a lot we can do directly in terms of what's happening wherever. Certainly we can pray. Certainly we can engage the universe in ways that we speak to the divine about the things that concern us. Absolutely, we can do that. But in terms of actually being able to affect outcomes in Lebanon or the Ukraine or wherever, it's our power is limited. So we must avoid the temptation of succumbing to distraction from the preparing of our own ground, the clearing of the brambles in our own hearts, the attending to those things in life that are keeping us from experiencing peace and tranquility in our world, personally.
And I would say, thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt there, Michael, but I just wanted to add, I know that some people might come back with, well, if we don't do anything like protest and things like that, then nothing changes. And I totally understand that there are people who are called to gather people towards activism, and whatever your activism is might take its own form. But I think that we might be even more effective. Like if that's what you're called to do, to work within community, to gather communities, to protest, it is possible that you might be able to be more effective. At the very least, you'll have more to give if, in addition to that, you're also focusing on doing what you need to do to make sure that you are in as much peace as possible, because to not be at peace is draining of life force. It is draining of the life force. And I think that's part of what makes these world events that much more tragic, because it's so hard when people are actually living in the midst of them to feel peace. And I think that's why when people are in the midst of them, the quality of revenge, for example, it feels more addictive. It feels like that much more draw. But what do you think?
It's always because of the hurt. The hurt is driving it. And you can get all the revenge you want in the world, but it's not going to solve the hurt. It's not going to make it go away, no matter how much blood you draw. It's not going to fix it. It's not. Because the hurt is the thing that must be addressed, right? In terms of, this hurt me, and this hurt me so, it's like, it's grief 101, anger. It comes right after denial, right? Like, it's like, they've hurt me, and I'm going to get them for it, right? Especially, like, it's human to want. It's human. It's natural. It's, you bite me, I bite you back. It takes real spiritual growth to be able to go to a place that says that I can forgive you, even though you've hurt me so badly, even though the hurt may continue, even though I may still be suffering, I can still forgive you for how you've treated me, or how you've treated my people. It's a powerful way. It's a powerful place to get away from the distraction. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be involved. Like, to use that lovely expression from the next generation, you do you, right? Like, if you feel called by your
spirit, soul, higher power,
personal discernment, that the right thing for you to do is to be able to pursue such and such a cause. This should be your mission. This should be your ministry in the world. Well, then you should certainly pursue it. But I think that, in addition, or certainly alongside it, you need to be doing the self-care and the self-work of clearing away the impediments in your life that prevent you from being the loving spiritual being that you were intended to be. That's what I think.
Wow.
Now, in terms of magic, what is magic? Magic is not understood. Magic, if you go to the dictionary, you're going to find definitions that say something along the lines of causing change in conformity with supernatural powers, right? That's the kind of sense of this, magic is this sort of miraculous thing that you're doing on, that is not related to the physical world. Whereas when you talk to actual practitioners of magic, people who've done some thinking about it, they have a very different view of what magic is. That magic really is about causing change and conformity with will, right? So magic becomes much broader thing than casting hexes, or the popular imagination of what magic is. Magic becomes how you get anything done, right? Like magic, it's all magical. And when you start to think this way, you start to realize, well, we live in a magical universe. The fact that we're matter, we're animated, and we have consciousness, and we're having this discussion, it is magical. It is magical that this is possible. It is magical that we have any existence at all, really, when we think about it. Magical. And it's brief. It's transitory. So in the time that we have, in the opportunities that are being presented to us, in the ocean of grace in which we live, it seems to me that we need to be focused on getting the things out of the way that prevent us from being everything that we could be.
Wow. Getting the things out of the way that prevent us from being everything that we can be. And that everything isn't just material.
Oh
It's so
no.
much more. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. I don't think the spiritual path is necessarily about getting rich. I don't think it's about being poor either, particularly. But I think that it's not. That's not. It's about prosperity rather than than net worth. It's about, it's about being in the flow of the harmony of life and the goodness of life, and being able to participate in life, and to make those interactions, to make those connections, uh, little moments where you're offering the face. You're offering a face that is connected to that love, is connected to that wisdom, is connected to that peace, and that you're bringing it into the world by how you're interacting and relating to other people.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I know it's one of those great conundrums. If God is loving for love, or universe is loving, or the divine is loving, or love and wisdom is loving, then why is there hate? Why are there wars? Why is there pain? Like, what can we do about it? I mean, these seem to be these eternal questions that go back millennia, right?
Well, there's I mean, there's kind of two views of it. I mean, the West, we tend to look at the world as it's imperfect, it's fallen, it's not what God intended, right? Exactly what we ended up with, right? And so therefore we have all these things, right? And if you go back to Genesis, I mean, it's in Judaism, it's a rather just so story. This is the explanation for why this is the case, why, men have to work and women have pain in childbirth, and, and so on. It's a just so story. In Christianity, it became, oh no, this is the fall, that, the world is a fallen place, and it's out of alignment. It's not in a state of relatedness between environment and folks within it, and all the creatures therein. So the other view of it is that, well, it's really all an illusion, right? This is more Eastern thought, that it's just a play of consciousness is what we're looking at here, and no one really gets hurt, and no one really dies, and no one really, I mean, there's that view of it as well, in terms of to explain it. What it really is, I think like many of these types of questions, we're dealing with mystery. We don't know what it is, and therefore the different views of spirituality, the different great spiritual traditions and religious traditions offer windows to peer at this mystery, to get some sense out of this mystery. Certainly, astrology is another pair of glasses, if you will, to be able to gaze into this mystery and see its wondrous workings of how these symbols replicate themselves in in our lives and in the lives of our clients, and what we can see happening in the world. I think that's one of the reasons why we love astrology, is it gives us that we get to see something that is magical and profound about the world. But I think fundamentally, the bottom line is that all these tools are useful when directed, by our own creative sense, our own creative purpose, to be able to fashion them in a way that can make change happen in the way that we want to make happen. And with Mars Pluto, it's about change. It's certainly about change. And if you try to hang on and say, well, no, it's not about change, you're going to run into difficulty. Whereas with Pluto, it's surrender. You have to surrender to the transformation. You have to surrender and let go of what needs to go. And that is hard at times, because we get very attached to the things, even the things that torment us.
Wow. So what would your final advice be before I let you go? What can we do to prepare, to engage, to embrace whatever we need with this opposition? What can we do as individuals?
Well, as individuals, I think it's about taking a hard look at ourselves and to look at what it is that's keeping us from our desires. What is it that's blocking us? What is it in ourselves that has thwarted us from getting done what we want to get done? What is it that has stopped us from achieving? And go down into it and see it and look at it, get it into consciousness. I mean, you were talking about psychotherapy, and psychotherapy is a kind of magic. It's something happens in the exchange between the therapist and the client that enables the client to transform, to attend to issues and to be able to move past them. So, in the same way, you can individually do work, but you need to, with Mars Pluto in particular, you need to look at the shadow. Now, oftentimes people in the New Age community are into, the light and the love and the wisdom and, and so on, all those good, wonderful things. But as Jung, who said that we don't become who we are by visualizing creatures of light. We become who we are by illuminating what is in darkness, right? By bringing light to that which we haven't seen or we haven't faced or that we've repressed or that we've been told we shouldn't have. So it's about digging that stuff up. So at this time, it's making sure you dig into your own biases, dig into your own crud, and see it for what it is and process it and deal with it and take it to the trash. Because that's what Mars Pluto is really about, is about getting rid of the stuff you don't need. And certainly there are stones that are gemstones that can help you with those kinds of processes, like black tourmaline or obsidian. Are particularly useful or hematite, another one that can be useful in terms of that kind of grounding, protection, and purging of negative energy, and that we direct ourselves towards eliminating that stuff that needs to be eliminated.
And it can only make us better to do that, wherever it is that we might want change in our lives or in the collective, on the world stage. At least being willing to engage that work, as you are describing it, of understanding ourselves and allowing ourselves to get really, as you said, grounded, right? Purify something within. It can only help us to get better, because when we purify, we get to a more essential sense of ourselves, which must be loving, which must get us to, or at least closer to, an energy of love, because that's what it is. If you are purifying and it's taking you the other way, you might not be going in the right direction. It might not be purification at all. Let me just share this. I want to share this before I go. And that is years ago, I remember going to a magic store, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? It's like, it was in Mexico. It's like brujeria. There are these little shops of brujeria, and you can get like all kinds of incense and spells and herbs. And I mean, just anything you can imagine, magically speaking. They've got candles and everything. And so I'd gone a few times to this one place. It was like in the barrio, right? Like, so this is, and I remember having a conversation with the woman there, and she spoke English. And I remember I'm asking her about, like, what do you think about love spells and things like that? And I remember her saying, use your anger. She's like, yeah, use your anger, like tap into that anger. And then you want to like focus it and then do it. And what she was telling me to do, which involved like lighting candles and different things like that, like channel that energy. And I'll tell you, I did a little experiment. And what I found is If I'm using my anger, boy, do I ever feel angry. Like, boy, does that manifest something like a disposition within myself that I really don't want to be aligning with. It is a whole other energy. So there are people who are on that tip, as they say, right? They're on that like whole path. It's a very different thing than what you and I might be talking about, right?
Well, I think anger is information. Anger is useful. Mars has a place. Without Mars, there's no immune system to fight off infections. There's no fighting spirit to be able to endure and assert. No, there's no. I mean, Mars is the power that says no, right? That's terrible too. As we learn at the Mars return, we learn around then. We learn no. And it's the biggest, most powerful word we've learned up to this point. Up to this point, we've been, yeah, whatever the parents want. And then suddenly it's like, no. And it's that's Mars. So it's tuning into that inner no that's yes to yourself. That's what Mars is about, right? Is being able to say no to this so that you can say yes and affirm yourself. So rather than getting to the point where it's all about, it's all about the anger and the fire that rushes to your head and the things you say that you wish you didn't say and the and so on. It's about you containing it, focusing it, taking it as information, and asking maybe, where is it that I'm hurt? Where is it that needs love, light, wisdom, peace brought to it? It's where does I need soothing rather than where do I need to punch someone in the nose?
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And going back to the love spell that this woman was trying to teach me, where is it that maybe I'm looking for love and the promise and the peace that might bring? And is this way of going about it going to get me to that feeling that I want? Because I think we make our own peace. It's like we put it in the hands of something external or someone external. And we think, when I have this, then I will be this. If I have that guy, then I'm going to be so happy and I'm going to be so loved. But that may not be the path, right? Which is why in magical practice, I know when people say, oh, I want that guy to come back to me or whatever, it's a much better strategy to do a ritual or do magic to open yourself to love, and see where it might come from, to align yourself with love energetically, spiritually, is going to get you what you really want, which is love.
Right.
Which is yeah.
Right. And it's because there's so much will in magic. You have to be very pure about your intention. And I don't mean just like, I have no other intention but this intention. What I mean is that you have to thought out what is your intention? What is it that you really want? What is that thing? And then you have to be open to you have to be careful not to outline it too much in terms of saying, well, it's got to be this form of it. There has to be this specific, or it's not what I want. Well, no, you've got to leave room for the wisdom of the universe that might know better than you do what you actually need. And that the thing that you think you want, which is such and such a guy, is perhaps not the right guy for you, right? And that this is one of the things I talk about when I talk about Jupiter, is like, we don't know what Jupiter is saving us from when we're having our transits of Jupiter, right? We don't know. It's like we don't, just as the Earth is not aware of all the asteroids that Jupiter keeps from falling into the planet. We're not aware of how many things Jupiter is saving us from in terms of the aspects that it's bringing to us. But I think it's in general. I think that we don't see the whole board. We don't have omniscience. We may be vehicles for the light. We may be divine beings in the sense that our being is rooted in the divine and finds its source in the divine. But that isn't to say that we have the omniscience to know everything and to know even everything that would be best for us. So when it comes to any kind of magical practice, part of it is focusing of the will to bring about change, but part of it also is surrendering to the will of the universe so that the change that is right for you can occur. That's, I think, real magic.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And surrendering to the will of the universe so that you might surrender to what is actually right for you. You might surrender to the higher love, higher wisdom that you're not even realizing in your human wants and needs. But if you believe that the universe is wise and loving, then it is ultimately aligning with that love as part of the mystery that's going to get you more of that love and wisdom that you're actually seeking.
Well,
Trust the universe for the things that don't manifest in your life, knowing that that is a part of the path towards greater love and greater wisdom for you.
I think that you start purifying your intent. You start activating, what I like to refer to as multimodal magic, where it's like you're not just doing a ritual. You're doing a ritual. You may be using crystals. You may have a grid. You may time it out in terms of when to actually begin the process in terms of what you want to do. You may have all that, but your soul has to be in a place where you're open to powers greater than yourself that may know better. To put it crudely, you may think, I've got to have a Volkswagen universe. That's the thing I want. And the universe doesn't want to give you a Volkswagen. It wants to give you a Rolls Royce, right? Like that's how you have to see that something more valuable may be out there than what it is that you're asking for. It's important to set up. It's important to set up those kinds of precautions in magic because there is a saying that whom the gods love, they destroy. They give you what you want, and it's more than you can handle. So I think it's really important to maintain one's humility, particularly in terms of approaching this kind of material. It's important to understand your relationship to it and to go into it honestly in terms of being, self-reflective and seeing the roots of where it is you're doing what it is you want to do, and then committing to it and bringing your own artistry, your own creativity to how to do it. I mean, the trouble with going into a magic store in the barrio, as exciting as it sounds,
it was
story, and it's that you're getting somebody else's spell. You're getting somebody else's creative thing around love. When for magic to be most effective, it's you bringing your own creative spirit to it. You're bringing your own creative will to it. You're bringing you're fashioning it. It's not just some formula that you're reciting. It's something that's coming out of you, and that's connected to your spirit.
Wow. And may your spirit be pure and guided by love and focused on love so that you may manifest more circumstances in alignment with greater love and greater wisdom in your life.
Exactly.
Michael Barwick, I love you. Exactly. I love you. You are so brilliant. You are so freaking amazing. I love you so much. I know I tell you that every time I see you. Even when we're not on camera, I'm like, you are so freaking brilliant. Oh my God, you're so amazing. You have just met, everybody, my personal Jupiter. It is Michael Barwick that is the voice of Jupiter in my life. Many, many times over, I have come to Michael Barwick and said, this is going on. And Michael will summon Jupiter in my life for me, or at least remind me of the presence of Jupiter, as I feel like you've done here right now, today, right? Like exactly it. It is a reminder to, if you want to do magic, if you want to facilitate whatever it is, world change, your own peace, changing your life, more love, more prosperity, whatever it might be, it is about that sense of aligning with that beautiful higher will and being willing to see things from that place of Jupiterian hope, which can only help us around the world, especially right about now and in our own lives and in our own hearts. And take that to the magic store in the barrio, right? Take that to the magic store. Let them, you can go in there. Next time they tell you to use your anger, well, not you. Well, the next time they tell me, because I am the one who goes to the magic stores in the barrio in Mexico. I've done it in Mexico City. I've done it in Cancun. I'll tell you, I love them. I don't know. I just love those spaces. They're just so interesting. And yeah, let me walk into the next one at the next time and say, okay, no, I don't think I'm going to do an anger oriented, or I'm not going to do a spell where I got to tap into the energy of anger, but let me tap into that Jupiter love and wisdom. And maybe that can be some part of, I don't know, helping us to navigate this Mars-Pluto opposition, which is where we started with this talk, right?
Well, I wouldn't recommend that one tries to do magic on Mars, like specifically magic around Mars-Pluto symbolism. Like I wouldn't. That's not where you'd start, right? Start with Venus. Start with Jupiter. Start with things that are start modest. Don't try to manifest the universe instantly. You need to take, you need to control the scope of it, and you also need to, you want to focus it. Like it can become overly, it's easy to overly complicate what it is that you're trying to do. So one of the things I talk about in the course is about simple approaches to how to do this, and how to combine creatively an understanding of magic with astrological rules to be able to use gemstones for healing, for abundance, for love, for whatever, for career, for whatever it is that you want, where you want to bring change. But it's important that always with magic you understand that there is that twin pole. Like on one level, it's deepest inside of you, where the divine is, but it's also beyond you, way beyond you.
Yeah. And that's how we might lift ourselves, right? It's beyond us, but through magical practice, we might get closer to that more elevated beyond by our willingness to align with it.
It's both. It's about digging deep into self and finding what's core there, because the root of who we are is divine, right? So it's like if you dig deep enough, you're going to see the face of God staring back at you in human consciousness, right? Like that is, I mean, in a way, the divine has always been thought of as up there, right? In the sky, right? Like what is astrology but a way of seeing the image of the divine impressed upon the human soul, right? Like that's what it is, right? That's what makes it so powerful and magical. All these incredibly beautiful moments in time that are now walking around on the planet, right? In terms of the work we do with the clients and the people that see us, that we give astrology to. I think that by understanding, deep inside of yourself and digging into the deep core of yourself, you're getting closer to divine intent in terms of what the purpose is. And astrology is one tool, one very powerful and profound tool for getting at that. But also, it's a process. Once you get there and you start pushing out into the world, then it becomes understanding, having humility to see that you're part of a larger design, and that you have to be open to its urgings, its promptings, and what it may teach you that is more surprising than you can imagine.
And more loving than you can imagine.
Oh, infinitely more loving than you can imagine. Yeah. So much love. It's terrifying to the ego, really. Like, I think it's like, to be consumed, to be melted into that, to become so overwhelmed with that love that you individuality dissipates. It's terrifying to the ego, I think, when confronted with just how in the enormity of that. That's why we live where we live. That's why they say that, you know, one of the powers of God is concealment, like, and the nature of reality itself is concealed, that we don't see that the divine is in our hearts. We don't see that. Most people don't see that. We don't see that it's been hidden there, and that our life purpose is about facilitating its expression in the world.
Wow. Just so beautiful, Michael. Once again, everybody, Michael Barwick is coming back to Synchronicity University as part of the November 2024 speaker series. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate. As low as just $5 a class to learn from Michael. You see how brilliant he is. He is incredible. And he always comes very well prepared. I will say that as well for every class that he teaches. He's taught a bunch of classes at Synchronicity University. And we have this Scorpio magical theme that's playing out for this speaker series. And really, it is Michael Barwick that is at the forefront of it. And I couldn't be happier to spend this time with you, to work with you again. And I just love that this is the wisdom and the love that makes me better so often. So I just adore you so much. Thank you, Michael.
Well, you're just so sweet, Nadiya. You say the most incredible things about me. I really, really always appreciate spending time with you and discussing, you know, the bigger questions, the predictive questions, the astrological intricacies of it all. It is.
You love the big questions. I know that. You do. Well, you'll just break out. I will say to you, hey, what do you think about, you know, this guy I'm thinking about going on a date on? He says this is his ascending sign. And somehow within 3 minutes, it'll become like the big question, right? It'll become about the nature of the universe and love. And oh my God, like, do you know that this ancient philosopher thought about this gemstone in this way? Like, you always remind me, like, don't make it about the little thing. No. It's big. The universe is big. Like, enjoy the bigness of it all. Be more. And by being more, it's like to make the ego less, you make yourself more in an interesting way. Yeah.
Well, you gotta, you know, you gotta have both, right? You gotta have your feet rooted in the ground, and you gotta have your head in outer space, right? Like it's you know, it's pulling that being that link between heaven and earth, and you know, growing and producing and being part of it all while you're here, while you're experiencing the miracle of life here on planet Earth. It's a temporary deal.
Wow. Michael, I love you. Thank you. And everybody out there, thank you so much for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.